Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be talking about the TV series, The Alienist. So, before I do get going with this discussion, I will have no spoilers about the TV series or the book. I've not even read the book just yet. I'm dying to read it though. But yeah, no spoilers for book or TV series. The point of this discussion is to get you guys interested to watch the series if you've not seen it already. But if you have seen the series, please feel free to talk about it with me down in the comments, share your feelings and opinions about it, things that you liked, things that you hated. And yeah, we gotta talk about, is there a possibility of a season 2? Because I would really like a season 2. So let's get going. The Alienist premiered in January of 2018 on the US channel called TNT, and it had 10 episodes. The TV series is based off of the book of the same name by Caleb Carr, which was published in 1994. And there is actually 2 books in this series, which surprised me because I got on Goodreads thinking that The Alienist was just a standalone book, but there are 2 books. I don't think the second book is as well known. That's why I was suggesting, is there the possibility for a season 2 if they do decide to kind of go off the second book, perhaps. So I guess we shall wait and see. So, my thoughts and feelings about The Alienist. Yeah, guys, the things that I liked, the things that I was a little frustrated with, I suppose. For the most part, I freaking loved this series. Yeah, guys. Every episode, all 10 episodes, were just magnificently done from start to finish. Just really engaging and captivating, and oh my goodness, I wasn't really quite sure what I was getting into going into this show. They did a great job with the promotional material, really just getting you to watch the show, I think. And yeah, this show, if you're squeamish, I don't know if this is for you. I'm definitely squeamish, but I managed to get through it. I managed to get through it. There were some truly horrific things that happened on this show. Not only with children, but with animals. Let's put it that way. There's some truly horrific things that happen to children and animals, and it's just really gruesome. And yeah, this show, wow, yeah guys, I was just so impressed with everything about it. The writing, the dialogue, the locations, the costuming. Don't get me started on the gorgeous costuming, yeah guys. And yeah, the show is just absolutely raw and real and gritty and horrific and terrifying. It's very brutal in some places. It doesn't shy back from this world and the things going on. And I've not even given a brief little plot summary just yet. I probably should have done that at the start of this video, but yeah, The Alienist, it takes place in 1896. You know, the turn of the century is just around the corner, pretty much. And yeah, it takes place in New York City, and what we essentially have is that there's a series of child murders going on. And yeah, specifically young boys that are dressing up as little girls. So you have that concept going on. What's going on here? Why is the murderer attacking these very specific boys? And you're following the narrative of the season through the points of view of pretty much 3 basic characters that you have. You have Dr. Laszlo Chrysler, who is an alienist, or a psychologist as it would have been known, or it would be known today, I suppose. Yeah, then you have John Moore, who's a journalist, and then Sarah Howard, who works at the police department. So yeah, you're going on this journey with these 3 characters as they try to investigate this series of child murders, and yeah, will they stop it, or won't they? And yeah, a lot of it has to do with early psychology, pretty much. And yeah, especially Chrysler's obsession with wanting to understand the psychology of this specific human being, you know, to try to understand why this man or woman is doing what they're doing. So I'll talk about the characters a bit more specifically in a moment, because I definitely want to gush about the acting on this show, because it is incredible. But yeah, just to kind of touch on some of the commentary that's presented in this show, this show is very relevant in some ways. You know, it takes place in 1896, but a lot of the things that are kind of going on in this show, it's like, well, geez, similar sort of things go on in the world currently. So yeah, it's not far removed. You know, it's not foreign and distant at all while you're watching it. It's like you can definitely relate to certain things. And yeah, there's definitely commentary on women's rights and homophobia and race issues and immigration. And one of the biggest concepts is definitely this whole idea of wealth and privilege, because that's kind of one of the first ideas that gets floating around in these characters' heads very, very early on, is that they feel like the murderer has to come from wealth and privilege, because how else is all of this being covered up and hidden? Because yeah, the police force is even acting very strangely, kind of as if they know what's going on and they're not willing to cooperate with our leading characters. And yeah, like I mentioned, just everything about the show is just so stunning from start to finish. Writing, characters, locations, costuming. I especially got the biggest kick out of like early forensics. You know, we're so used to watching crime shows, and yeah, we have our modern forensics and how we solve crimes, and yeah, it's just so fascinating to kind of watch the beginnings of forensics on this show, and yeah, them being like, oh, you can use fingerprints to find a murderer, you know, it's so funny, but yeah, just kind of really captivating at the same time. Before I do talk about the characters really quickly, I do want to talk about a bit of some negatives for me. And the thing is, these are not like horrible negatives. These are just things that I felt like the show could have possibly improved upon, maybe. Like I said, it's 10 episodes. I do think the first half of the season is the strongest. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know how others feel about that, but for me, I was the most captivated and into the first half of the season. But then, if you've seen the show, you know where I'm probably going with this. There's kind of this shift in direction about the midway point of the season, and the characters are kind of thrown for a loop, and things that you thought you knew are kind of turned on its head. And yeah, the show kind of takes another direction kind of about the midway point. And yeah, though I loved the second half of the season as well, I do think the first half of the season is where it excels the most, and where it's at its best, and where it's at its most horrific and brutal and terrifying. And another slight negative, which may just be a thing that I felt, you may not have felt it if you watched the show, but I felt like the ending, the final episode, was almost a bit anticlimactic in some ways. I don't know if it was just me. I mean, I love the finale, but it kind of reached the ending, and I was kind of like, oh, it's over. I'm not ready for it to be over, but this is the ending? Okay. And maybe that's done on purpose, you know? I now that I think about it, the ending might purposely be anticlimactic in some ways. I mean, especially when you understand Chrysler, and when you understand Chrysler's obsession with trying to figure out the psychology of the murderer and whatnot, maybe the whole ending is meant to be anticlimactic for all we know. So yeah, I do want to gush about the actors and the characters, because I love them. I think the actors and the characters are definitely the biggest highlight of this show, you know, outside of the great writing and whatnot. But yeah, looking at my notes here real quickly, yeah, we have Daniel Bru as Dr. Laszlo Chrysler, and he is the Alienist. And yeah, every week on the show, you get a definition about what the Alienist is about. It's like they have to remind you every week. Yeah, the Alienist, an alienist back in the day, was essentially a psychologist. It just didn't really have a term, you know. And yeah, an alienist was someone who, you know, talked to people, and yeah, people who were alienated is how it was worded. People who were alienated from their true selves and whatnot, and that was the point of an alienist, to figure out what the issue or the problem is and whatnot. I really love Daniel Bruhl, you guys. He's one of those actors, I've seen him in several things over the years. I love him as an actor. He's just always really intense with his performances, and yeah, he tells a lot through his mannerisms and his body language, and especially his eyes. I think, you know, you really get to know the character through what he doesn't say sometimes. And I think Daniel Bruhl just did a fantastic job from start to finish with this character, because sometimes, for the most part, you do like him as a character, but sometimes you do get a little frustrated with him, because he does have this obsession with trying to figure out the psychology of the murderer, this obsession with trying to figure out what the next move of the killer is, and yeah, he's kind of a little bit hateful and rude to his colleagues at times. And then you have Luke Evans, who plays John Moore, and he's the journalist. He's also an artist. Oh my goodness, you guys, Luke Evans. Whew, my goodness, I am a fan of Luke Evans. That man is hot. I love him to bits. I've seen just about every movie he's been in, I think. His IMDb is not too long, but I've seen the majority of his work. And I just can't imagine anybody else playing the character of John Moore. And John Moore, he's a bit of a funny character in some ways, because he is a bit squeamish about things. He seems to be the most aghast at what's going on. He has the most disbelief about these killers. He has the most disbelief at times about how can someone be this evil. And yeah, his character, he has a lot of issues as well. I think there's some elements of his past that we don't quite understand. Yeah, involving a woman, and yeah, he's constantly going out and sleeping with women and drinking and gambling, and yeah, he has to control that side of him. And then we have Dakota Fanning as Sarah Howard, and she's like one of the first women that works at the New York City Police Department. Dakota Fanning, you guys, I've seen Dakota Fanning since she was a little girl, you know, when she was a wee little girl, and it was just kind of weird watching her play this very adult female role, you know, just outside of any other role I've ever seen her play. And the thing is, I loved it. I loved her performance, and I think she did an amazing job with this character. And yeah, the character of Sarah Howard, I mean, yeah, this is where you definitely get a lot of women's rights and the women's issues that are brought up. And yeah, there's one particular scene early on, yeah, her taking off a corset, and you just through that scene alone, you know, you really see the plight of women back in the day, just through the simple stripping of a corset and how it kind of damages the body and leaves markings and bruising and whatnot. And I love her relationship with both Chrysler and John Moore, because she has a very specific relationship with both of them. I love her interplay with the two of them. I liked how she was used in the story. You know, she wasn't just some female sidekick. And then we have Brian Garrity. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Brian Garrity, who plays Theodore Roosevelt. You guys, yes, that Theodore Roosevelt who becomes our future president. I think I was the most surprised with the character of Roosevelt on this show. I wasn't expecting him to have as large of a role as he did. I think for the most part he was in every single episode, and yeah, he had a lot of scenes with the main characters, and yeah, his role in the show, yeah, I think he's the police commissioner at the time, and I'm assuming that's historically accurate, that he was a police commissioner at the time. And yeah, oh my god, just Brian Garrity, like I said, if I'm pronouncing that right, I loved his performance, you guys. Roosevelt, I love all the characters, but Roosevelt was kind of one of the surprise wonders for me, and I loved how he figured into the story. And yeah, his interaction with these characters, and yeah, him, you know, really wanting to help out, and his sense of honor and duty and wanting to do the right thing, but yeah, also trying to cover up certain things, you know, because there's him who's, you know, a good officer, but then, yeah, there's the corrupt officials around him, you know, that are trying to stop him from doing what's right. And then last, we have Douglas Smith and Matthew Shear, who play Detective Sergeants Marcus and Lucius Isaacson. They are Jewish brothers. Yeah, and they're essentially kind of the forensics team on the show. Whenever there's evidence, they go over the evidence. They come up with like the fingerprinting system and whatnot. And I loved and adored the Isaacson brothers. They were just the cutest things. Now, I do have some negatives with them. Though I love them as characters, I think there were some unnecessary scenes with the two of them. I don't know if the show just wanted to kind of flesh them out a bit and give them a bit more depth and character, but I felt like a lot of their added scenes were just unnecessary to the overall narrative and kind of just interrupted the narrative in some ways, you know, because the big focus of this show is the murder investigation. And yeah, the two of them would kind of have some random scenes, especially one of the brothers, his relationship with this young woman, which I don't understand the point of that whole story and where it went. It kind of just seemed to go nowhere for me. But yeah, they are the only characters that I felt, you know, could have done a little bit better. I don't think they necessarily had to be fleshed out, you know. I mean, I think we got enough of them through just their interactions with the other characters and their placement, you know. I don't think they needed additional storyline, because like I said, I felt like their additional storylines sometimes distracted and took away from the main story that we needed to be focusing on, especially, you know, considering it's only 10 episodes. So, yeah, you guys, have I covered everything about The Alienist? I feel like there's just so much I want to talk about, and I really want to talk about spoilers, but like I said, I'm not going to do that. There's just so much about this series that I was impressed with, that I absolutely enjoyed from start to finish. Just very well done. I think this whole series was incredibly well done. I hope it gets nominated for some Emmys next year. Unfortunately, I think the assassination of Gianni Versace, I think that's going to end up winning everything next year. So that kind of ruins the chances of The Alienist winning some things, unfortunately. Because like I said, I think Versace's winning everything next year for like the Golden Globes and the Emmys and whatnot. But yeah, I definitely think Daniel Bruhl, Dakota Fanning, Luke Evans, I think all of them need to be nominated. I think the show needs to be nominated for overall show, definitely for costuming. But yeah, you guys, what are your feelings about The Alienist? Because I'm sitting here gushing about it. Did you guys enjoy The Alienist as much as I did? Were there some few negatives that you had some concerns about? But yeah, just talk to me about this show. I'm definitely very curious your thoughts and opinions. Yeah, do you think there's a possibility of a second season? Like I said, there is a second book, but I feel like the show can go for multiple seasons in some ways. The concept of the show is that it is essentially, you know, a crime show. Yeah, you can have these same characters solving a different crime every season. You know, it doesn't have to just be one season. I would love to see it continue, quite honestly, because I love these actors, and I love turn of the century New York City. And yeah, you guys, I guess to compare this show, if you love shows like Ripper Street or Copper, those are both shows that take place kind of turn of the century. Yeah, Ripper Street takes place turn of the century England, and Copper takes place turn of the century New York City. If you love those two shows, I highly recommend The Alienist. And then yeah, even if you love The Alienist, go watch those shows, because I think you'll love Ripper Street and Copper just as much as The Alienist, I think. But yeah, you guys, talk to me about your thoughts and feelings about The Alienist. I would love to hear them. So yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.